There was once a wealthy man who had 2 sons. The older son worked the fields silently and with diligence. However, the younger son was unruly and independent. One morning, before the rooster crowed and the sun rose, the younger brother stumbled into his father's house after a night of parties. He was a shameful sight and held no sense of respect for his father. He slept in until midday and rolled out of his bed while his brother tilled the fields. Grumpy and entitled, the younger brother went to his father. With his chest puffed up and his nose high in the air, he demanded his father give him his inheritance. "I do not want to wait until you die," the son complained. "Give me my half of the inheritance now, so that I might do what I wish." The father did as the younger son requested and divided his wealth. With a broken heart, he gave his son property and gold and watched him walk away without so much as a thank you. The younger son gathered everything and took his wealth into the far country. He slithered around the cities, drowning himself in wine, women, and reckless substances. What he did not spend on prostitutes and revelry, he gambled. Weeks had passed, and his unearned wealth was eventually dried up. He owed a great deal of money to bad people and had contracted sickness from his promiscuous habits. Soon a great famine fell across the land, and everyone was in great need. The friends he had made in his wealth were nowhere to be seen, and the young son descended into total poverty. The younger son scoured the countryside, looking for any work that would fill his belly and his new addictions. The only job he could find was tending to a farmer's pigs. Days had passed, and the son still had very little money to pay for food. What little money he made, he gave to pay off his gambling debts. His stomach rumbled as he watched the pigs feast on slop and garbage. The smell of rotten onions and fermented figs filled the air. Dung, dirty rainwater, and pig saliva dripped into the feeding trough, but the son could not take his eyes off it. He was starving, desperate, and ashamed. The young man walked beside the pigs, fell to his knees, and began to eat the brown slop with the pigs. The rancid smell was almost unbearable. His mouth was filled with dung, rotten vegetables, and spoiled meat. As the young man brought his face to his hand filled with garbage, he considered the state of his life. "Even my father's hired servants get fresh bread, yet I am here in hunger," he thought to himself. "If I go to him and beg for his forgiveness, maybe he will make me a slave. At least then I will have a warm bed and fresh bread." So the younger son traveled through the countryside back to his father. His head was held low and his feet dragged in the dust. A few tears streamed down the son's eyes. He could picture the angry look of his father. "Surely he would be too ashamed of me to take me back," the son thought to himself. Yet the younger son kept walking. His options were limited, and his belly was empty. It was late afternoon, and the sun had turned the father's fields a bright gold. He sat above his terrace, admiring the way the breeze made the grain dance. He watched his elder son tending to the works. Then a small speck appeared in the distance. The father peered closely towards the hills to see a figure hobbling towards the property. As the figure drew closer, the father could see that it was his younger son. He had returned. The father tied up his robes and ran out of his home. He ran with fire and vigor. The son could see his father in the distance running towards him. Afraid that his father would attack him, the young son braced himself. But instead of a strike to the jaw, he received a warm embrace. The father cried on his son's shoulders. Laughs came from his belly as tears streamed down his bearded face. "You have come home," the father shouted with glee. "My son, you have returned to me." The son fell to his knees. He was so ashamed he could not stand to look at his father. "My father, please, forgive me," the younger son said. "I am not worthy to be called your son." His face fell into the dust as he wept. The father knelt down into the dust with him and picked him up by the shoulders. He called for his servants and said, "Get me my best robe and put it on my son. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Then kill the fattest calf we have, for tonight we will hold a feast in his honor." The servants left immediately. The son was stunned and confused. The father smiled from cheek to cheek and said, "My son, you were once lost, but now you are found. This is why we celebrate." So the younger son was washed and given fine clothes. There was a great feast and party held in his honor. The younger son was humbled and laughed silently as he watched his family dance and sing, although not everyone was happy to see him return. The older brother came in from the field to see his father dancing and rejoicing. He saw that the fattest calf had been cooked and the finest robe placed on his brother's shoulders. The older son stewed in anger. He felt underappreciated and angry. He stormed off to be alone in the fields. The sun was setting and the older brother could hear the music in the distance. He hated his brother. He hated that he stole half his father's wealth while he toiled in the fields, yet his brother received the celebration. The wind blew gently and a few tears fell down the older brother's face. His father could see him sitting and sat beside him. "What upsets you, my son?" he asked. The older son shook his head and gave a sorrowful laugh. He did his best to hold back tears as he spoke. "For years I have served you and worked hard for your favor. I never disobeyed you, and you have never given me so much as a goat for me and my friends to celebrate. Yet when your son comes home after squandering your wealth with prostitutes, you kill the fattest calf and adorn him with rings and robes." The father was silent for a moment and sighed. He put his arm around his oldest son. "Son, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. You may take of whatever is mine and enjoy it. But your brother was once dead, but now is alive. He was lost, and now he is found. This is worth celebrating." After saying these things, Jesus sat back down with his friends, and the Pharisees left in a fury. Jesus revealed a special part of God's heart that day, that no child is too far gone to experience his love and favor. No matter how far one goes, the Father will run to embrace his lost child. As a shepherd will leave 99 of his sheep to go after one lost one, so Jesus will go to any length to find the ones he loves.